Are you an entrepreneur looking to grow your business to six figures? Have you ever dreamed of maybe taking your six-figure business to that magical place of seven figures and doing it consciously? On this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, we're going to examine what happens to leadership when you embrace the idea of taking your business from six figures to seven figures. Is it possible to do that? If you're an entrepreneur or business person, you've gone through that tumultuous period of maybe growing your business to six figures, and you'd love to take it over that hurdle to the seventh figure, this is the show for you. Welcome to Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty Leadership Interview Series. I'm your host, Dov Barron, founder of Full Monty Leadership. Now, if you are a new listener or a new viewer, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. And if you're a regular, thanks for helping us to get to number one in the Fortune 500 category and in a bunch of other categories. It's been awesome that you've done that for us. We sincerely appreciate it. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know, as I said. And remember, to keep us relevant, go over to iTunes, rate, review, and share the show, subscribe to the show. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. Being an entrepreneur can be a very exciting and sometimes an overwhelming thing. Getting a new business off the ground can feel like you're pushing an aeroplane down the runway and just hoping it will fly. And of course, many don't. However, the ones that do have done what it takes to create the leverage that would launch them. So how do you do that? How do you get it off the ground? How do you make it move to get to that place? And then you imagine you're flying along, you're happy you got off the ground, and then one day you realize that you want to get this baby to fly a lot higher. It's at that moment that you realize somehow your business did get off the ground, but literally by the seat of your pants. And you've been wearing so many hats that you're not sure where your own head is a very normal feeling. And that you'd love to turn that six-figure business into a seven-figure one. How do you do this? Can feel like a complete mystery. Well, my guest on this episode of the show is JVCrumIII. JV helps entrepreneurs build businesses, grow businesses, and take six-figure businesses into seven-figure conscious businesses. We're going to talk about what a conscious business is as well on the show. By combining and making high-profit businesses with a positive impact. He is a speaker, a coach, Huffington Post communist. I was going to say that, but we'll change that to columnist. And he's a best-selling author of The Conscious Millionaire, Grow Your Business by Making a Difference. He hosts top-ranking Conscious Millionaire podcast. You go to iTunes, it's there all the time. The guy is at the top on everything. It's a great show. I know, I've been on it, and he's a great host. Fabulous, fabulous guest. Always good to go. He's the founder of ConsciousMillionaire.com. He's a global coaching and wealth product business. He holds an MBA, JD Masters in psychology, and has built a solid, rock-solid, successful business and sold many companies, showing you how to do the same. So please welcome my mate, JV Crum. Welcome, mate.
Hey, Tom, how are you? Wild. Yeah, I was thinking, you and I have kind of we're not talking about politics this season. So the only thing I will say is I think that's the only thing we're missing is a good communist running, right? I want you to know I'm not that guy.
No.
I believe people should make money. They should make lots of money, and they should make it by helping other people and making a positive impact. And when you do that, there is nothing more fulfilling that you could do with your life than knowing that you're making a positive difference in somebody else's life. And you're putting money in the bank every day for doing that. To me, that's my definition of heaven.
And it's good that you start right there because, you and I, for those of you who don't know that I've been on JV's show, and the JV and I are friends. We've been friends for a couple of years. And we've had many conversations on air and, of course, off air. And you and I have talked a lot about what does it mean to be in business consciously. And, you and I have talked about conscious capitalism. That we're both capitalists. We believe in allowing people to make money, free market, all the rest of it, and not standing there waiting for handouts. But at the same time, we both understand that every one of us has a responsibility to lift the next guy up. So That's what you and I had so much in common, and I like is this idea of conscious business. Talk a little bit more about conscious business for our new listeners, new viewers.
Sure. Well, let's take the word conscious and let's break it down and look at it three different ways. Because I wrote my book. Literally, I wrote it 7 times. Kids, don't do this at home. But if it's necessary, do it 7 times. And I realized that conscious is it's kind of a complex word, actually,
Sure.
and it's quite, and it can be very abstract. And I knew that my job with Conscious Millionaire was to make it very concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is that I myself, as the author, was using it multiple ways. And I said, boy, you better tease this out. And when I did, I realized that there are really 3 different ways to use conscious. So let's start with the first one. It kind of comes out of psychology, comes out of business, and it comes out of a lot of Eastern approaches as well. And that is conscious in the sense of being aware.
Yes, awareness.
Now, awareness. But now you use that word awareness and it kind of sounds like, oh, we're all going to meditate. Well, yeah, actually, folks, I think meditation is good, but that's actually not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you're literally aware of how does business work. I work with so many entrepreneurs that are floundering, and I love to help them get to that first 100,000 and do it correctly so then they can go to 7 figures. And what I find is they basically don't understand business. Right. They're not aware, and they're not aware of who their real niche is, what their real problems are, how they can best solve them, what their prospects are really wanting, who they need on their team. All of this is being conscious.
Yeah.
It's being how the marketing is going to work. What is the best system for you to have? How are you going to close sales in a methodical way? How are you going to deliver the products and services so that you have the steps in place? All of that's awareness. Now, the second part is what I call visionary. You might think of it as higher consciousness. And I like to use Steve Jobs only because everything I own now is Apple. I think I'm going to buy an Apple house next, right? It kind of seems to be the way it's going. And Steve Jobs was very visionary. Yes. When we talk about leaders who are visionary, they literally have a vision, a view of the future that is better and it's different than what's going on in the present.
Right.
I believe we can all do that. I don't think it's just a gift that some people have. And it really comes from the process of being present and expanding literally your awareness beyond just yourself and beginning to allow yourself to tap in. It's called different things in different systems. It can be big mind. It can be higher consciousness. But you think of great music, great art, great inventions, the innovation in business. It all comes from getting to a quiet place. A lot of times great music helps. And just allowing yourself to open up to ideas about how things could change. Because vision is about change. And then the third, which is really where I think so much is going on in the area of business that's exciting, is the whole area of being sustainable.
Right.
So you're talking about being a conscious person in terms of the food you eat, the lifestyle you have. And this really, solving these problems, how are we all going to have clean water? How do we all have housing, but the housing's not going to destroy the planet because we've used all the raw resources, and then we're going to tear down the house in 30 years because it was so poorly built? How do we solve transportation? All of those are sustainable questions.
Yes.
And it's where big money will be made, in as an entrepreneur. So all 3 of these relate to how we want to approach being an entrepreneur and how we want to lead our businesses, our corporations, our organizations with an awareness of what's really going on right now, a vision to what's possible in the future that is better than today, and an idea of how we can do this in a way that's sustainable across time.
So the 3 levels of this conscious, and that's what I like, the 3 levels of the idea of conscious. First of all, the conscious awareness of what is going on in business today, because business is changing fast, and it requires a commitment, a dedication to having that awareness, and not going, well, I already got this down, I get it. No. If you knew what to do to be successful yesterday, you're already out of date. So that first piece of conscious, I like that, and I think you're right. I know myself. I'm constantly going, I don't know enough about this. I don't know enough about this. I want to know more. I need to know. And I speak to people like you. You and I have many conversations where you know more about something than I do. And smart people ask for help. So that's number one, awareness and being willing to find it. Second, that piece I like, visionary. Visionary, can you let yourself expand beyond this, your idea of what it is? What is bigger than that? Who can you let in? And, we all have heard the thing that two minds are better than one, but can you be expansive? Can you go beyond even that? I love that. And the third part, which I think is a very important piece, because, we tend to have a bias, particularly in America, about that capitalism is a right-wing Republican thing where we don't care about the planet. And
right.
I think there's a lot of people see it that way, and it's not.
And I think that really is what I call, well, let's break it down, not so much Republican, Democrat, but in terms of stages. I call that first stage capitalism. Where first stage capitalism, we go back to Henry Ford,
yeah.
And I'm not bashing Henry Ford. I'm actually going to compliment Henry Ford, is he figured out we could create this assembly line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing that Henry Ford did. And in that world of the first stage of capitalism, we realized that we could take resources, utilize them that in a way that added value and dropped down profits to the bottom line. Now, I think the problems of first stage capitalism is all too often it's just focused on the bottom line,
right.
on the money.
Yep.
And it's why it's so easy, because this happens all the time. We read articles every day of a company that's become unethical, of a company that's Volkswagen, which was shocking, right?
Yes.
It was completely shocking.
Yeah.
That this happens when you're only focused on the bottom line. What I'm talking about in Conscious Millionaire, I call it second stage capitalism. And I said, well, there are really 7 stakeholders, not just the stockholders and board of directors who seem to get all the glory and the money from the first stage.
Right.
In the second stage, all the stakeholders, all the team members, the suppliers, your prospects, your customers, the society, your community you live in, everybody should be winning from what we're calling capitalism.
Yeah.
That doesn't change that it's capitalism, but it does change the flavor. It says that we're in this so that everybody wins, and everybody actually wins bigger by collaborating together and having a bigger goal that we're all going to work to achieve.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying about the when I said right-wing Republican, that's not a slant on Republicans. That's a slant on this idea that that's what it is. And so as a result, we shy away and we go, well, I don't want anything to do with that. But listen, there are some phenomenal business people who are very conscious, multi-millionaires and billionaires who are very much about of what we're talking about here. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you, the viewer, the listener, is this. If there's any part of you, and this is part of the work that I do, if there's any part of you that's running in the unconscious part, that you want it at a conscious level, you want to build a business, but you can feel yourself stalled, there's a good chance that unconscious level says that, if you're going to be a capitalist, if you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to be an asshole. And it doesn't have to be that. And that's what I loved about your book, JV, is that it brought to clarity. You and I both studied a lot of Eastern philosophy. We studied psychology. Right. We studied all those things. Right. And we care about the planet, and we care about people, and we care about relationships deeply. And we understand that you can make the world a better place by having more money and creating more opportunity for people. And I that's the piece I want to get everybody to grasp, get their arms around with what it is that you do, what it is that you bring. So walk us through, let's start at the beginning. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Because we got viewers, listeners who range from brand new entrepreneurs, they're just sort of starting out. We've got people who are executives who are coming towards the end of that career and going, I don't really want to play golf for the next 8 years. I kind of like to do something else, and I don't know what to do. So they've got some business mind, but they're not entrepreneurial. That's a different gig altogether. We've got entrepreneurs who are not business minded. They're creative, but don't have that. And we've got people who already are in existence. They have businesses, they're entrepreneurs, but they want to grow that into something magnificent. So let's start right at the beginning. Here's the person who's like, I've got a lot of entrepreneurial ideas, but I have not got a clue what to do. What's the first step for them?
Yeah, I think the first step is to realize that they've got to choose something that they want to do, that they're going to be passionate about, and that they've got some skills that relate to it.
Right.
Because I think if we're going to start with what is the most basic question for any entrepreneur to ask, and it really relates to why is every business in business? And there's the same answer. Businesses are in business for one reason. That one reason is to solve problems. Right. That's it. They have no other purpose but to solve problems. And therefore, as an entrepreneur, I think many people start as an entrepreneur and they never examine this very well.
Right.
So I want to kind of laser focus it all together. You're going to be solving problems, and you're going to be solving these types of problems over and over again. So the first thing is, many new entrepreneurs, they're talking about, oh, I can serve this group, and I'm going to serve this group, and I'm going to this going to go, no. No. I want you to choose one market niche that you're going to work with for 3 years, and it's the same market niche that can help you get to 7 figures in revenues, $1 million in revenues. And you don't need but one. And in fact, if you have more than one, it's actually a hindrance, not a help.
Yeah, I know this from first-hand experience. Believe me, that what happens is it dilutes you.
It dilutes you.
And I get that. And by the way, because entrepreneurs are often very creative. I'm a high creative. So you and I have had this conversation too. I got all these thousands of ideas and all kinds of things, the audiences that I can serve. But the truth is that until I pick something and go after that, it's diluted. And this is a very important point, JV. I think that they've got to get that you're saying here is bring it in. What's the piece?
So let's use what I call my formula for creating wealth. It's 3 steps, and we'll use that as a basis for this discussion.
Great.
Conscious, focused action.
Conscious,
focused action. So the conscious part is you have to be very, very clear about what is that number one result you want to accomplish right now. And by right now, I go next 12 months, the next 3 months, the next 30 days, right? And who do you want to be helping? It's at the conscious stage is the stage that I found most early stage entrepreneurs want to jump over it, and they go, okay, day one of business, we got to get busy, got to get busy selling somebody something. And I go, no, day one of business, you got to get busy figuring out what your business is. And you got to spend some time on that. And generally, I actually think this is your first 30 days. If you would take the first 30 days and do what I'm talking about, it will make the next 30 days so much easier, and it'll make your success the first year so much more likely. And that is, you've got to figure out who is that one market I want to be working with. But don't start out there, because the traditional MBA thing I was taught was you go out, you find a market, you find out a need that's not met, and you create it. No, first of all, that's just a horrible way to build a business. But second, it has nothing to do with you. You are going to be solving some group of people's, and they're going to have 1, 2, 3 top problems. And those are the only ones you need to know about. Really, if you're solving the 3 top problems, that's probably 80% of their mind space anyway. And so they got 3 top problems. You better be in love with those problems. Because if you're not excited to get up in the morning and solve those problems, you are dead in the water before you ever started. You will never be successful at that business. And by that, I don't mean that you might not get to 100,000, and gosh, you might get to 1 million, but you'll be one of the most unhappiest creatures on the face of the earth. And you'll hate every day that you get up.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the business won't work.
Right.
Because all you'll be thinking about is, God, couldn't I sell this business? Well, yeah, selling a business is a great idea, but it's a better idea when you built it to a large state and it has fast growth and you're excited about it. So if that buyer doesn't buy, when I went to sell a business, I went through 7 buyers. You know why? Because I was going to find the buyer who's going to give me the most money under the terms that I wanted.
Right.
But I could hang on there. So you've got to first figure out what is it that you're passionate about, that you've got skills. And then there are people out there that have problems that you could naturally solve. Now you got to go out and survey them and find out more about who they are. What are their age ranges? How much money do they have to spend? Is this just something they talk about? Like there are people who complain about problems all the time, but they really have no idea that they want to solve them because they get so much joy out of complaining.
So I'm telling it to you that for a minute, because I think that's an important piece that I think people miss. I know I missed it for the first 10 years of my career. And that is, there are people who have problems and are identified with the problems. they like bitching, moaning, complaining
Right.
as their reasons for not succeeding, versus the person who you're looking at as a client or as a customer who has the same problem but says, all right, I'm willing to do what it takes to solve the problem. And I think that that's a huge distinction that is in fact quite subtle, meaning
Right.
how do you sort it out? So can I stop you there for a minute and just go and pause?
Yeah,
So
I think
how do
this
you
is a
solve
really
that?
good distinction.
How do
Absolutely.
our viewers, our listeners go, okay, how do I know if this is just a moaning prat who just wants to moan and complain, or this is somebody actually committed, like wants me to help them solve that problem? How do they work that out?
Yeah. Well, here's a great way to work that out. What you're looking for is a hot button emotion. It can be a negative emotion, like you feel overwhelmed, or it can be a positive emotion, like you want the dream vacation of your life, or you want to marry the dream person of your life, right? But here's the real distinction. You don't have to create the product yet, especially if in this digital age that we're all living in, right? You can have a product to be delivered, and you go out and you see if you can sell it. And if nobody will buy it, maybe you're trying to either you're not selling it right, or you're selling the wrong product. You're selling the wrong solution. So this might be the solution that, as you put it really correctly, they're identified with that solution, right? You know, and that's part of what they do every day. I have a member of my family, I'm not going to mention who it is, right, who literally gets up in the morning, turns on the television, and watches the news to find out, and I'm going to quote them, to find out what they're going to worry about today.
Oh, my goodness.
To which I suggested, that went nowhere, right? Because this tells you they don't want to solve that problem.
No.
I said, you actually don't have to approach your day that way, because you actually don't have to spend the day worrying about anything. But they do. They're attached to worry, right?
Yep,
That's how
there's a lot of
what
those
they're
people.
identified. So if you were going to try to sell this person a product on how to stop worrying and have more joy in your life, they're going to be the last person. They're not going to pay you a penny.
No, you actually have to sell that person how to worry more and
Right.
get less sleep.
Right. How to worry more, get less sleep, and destroy your health in the process.
Exactly.
Then go, wow, it sounds like a good product right there.
Sounds like
You
a
know,
great
I've been
product.
working on it for years. Yeah, so we're joking, but the joke has a point.
course.
You've got to find out their top 3 problems they want solved, and that's the real distinction here.
Yeah.
And when you understand those, now the survey is really about finding out how do they want it solved. Because there's lots of ways you can deliver that solution. Let's talk about the online world. Let's talk about the world of coaches. I work with a lot of coaches. It could be coaching. It could be a product. It could be a 4-week training program, right? It could be a mastermind. It could be a training that they're going to come to. There's so many different ways that you could solve that problem. You got to find out how they want it solved and deliver it to them the way they want it delivered. And when you do that at a price point that represents the trust you've built with them and the value it has for them, you can make a fortune. Because the piece that's missing then is the marketing, how to attract that specific person, the selling process, which is how are you going to close that particular person, and the delivery process. So I talk in terms of systems. That's what I do. It's how I build anything. It's how I help my clients. In getting to the first 100,000, you really don't need but 3 systems. But if you don't have each of those systems, 1, it's going to be difficult. And 2, when you get to the 6 figures, that 100,000, now your business is not set up to go to $1 million.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people fail, is they go, somehow, they just beat the car long enough that it got down the road and they got to their 100,000, but they didn't do anything right to get there.
Right.
So can you get to a destination and you actually didn't do any of the right steps? Yeah, it's absolutely possible, but you've built no foundation. And that first 100,000 isn't so much about that 100,000 as it is putting the right foundation in place.
Foundation, yeah. So what are those 3 systems?
Yeah, so the 3 systems are marketing, which is really just how do you attract the person who is most likely to buy your product.
Right.
The selling, so once you attracted them, they raise their hand. All of us use lead gens. What are the lead gens? These are our attractors.
Yeah.
We're attracting our ideal prospect by giving this lead gen away. That lead gen, then, when you ask yourself, well, what should it have in it? It should have part of the solutions to their problem that are a piece of your bigger product that you're now going to sell them. And you might sell them a small product on the way to that bigger product. And each one of them are going to have more of what they want, but they're going to have a lot of it left out.
Right.
So you got their attention. Now you're going to close them on maybe something small. And then that small thing, you go, wow, this is good stuff. But now that I got this, I know I need blank, blank, blank. In fact, you could tell them what they're missing, right? And then that's the next piece. But all of those are products that are solutions that ideal prospect wants. You're going to close. And that's the closing system, your sales system. And now you're going to have a way to deliver it. Now, it may be as simple as it's a digital product. And the moment you've got your system all set up, and the moment that they click and they buy, bang, they go to a thank you page. There it is. They can download it. They get an email. Here's their password. Whatever it is, it automatically happens. You don't have to do it. But you've got to have it set up so that it's correct. You got to have it set up so if there's a problem, there's an email for them to contact. You have to think through. It's not just, oh, I gave them the product, it's over. No. Because some of them will have questions. Some of them will have, problems with it. Some of them will want to return it. Part of that delivery process is a return process.
Yes.
You will have returns. It's not possible to build a business without returns. And you want that return process to be as friendly as possible. Mm-hmm. Because if you ever want to sell that person again, you better create a positive experience for them when they want their money back. Because if you don't, they're never coming back.
No, and I think the old adage still is as strong as it ever was, and I would suggest stronger because of social media, and that is that people will tell other people. So if they want their money back, or they want to return the product, or the whatever it is, and you don't make that an easy, fluid, friendly process, they will put off people who would have come to you anyway. But if they got a good experience with that, and they're talking to somebody else, and somebody says that they're looking for something, you go, that person, if they got a good experience, will say, oh, I got that. It wasn't for me, but you should go see JV because his stuff is actually really good. I just realized it wasn't for me. That's a very and those are phenomenal referrals.
Right. Versus,
I wanted my money back from these people, and they were assholes, and they made it really difficult, and I had to fill out this 14-page letter. Of course, like, it isn't worth your time, it isn't worth your money to make it hard for people. As one of my business mentors years ago said to me, if somebody wants their money back on something that you've delivered, as in a product, then you should do it as fast as is humanly possible, and do it with a smile so that you learn to say goodbye to somebody who is not a fit.
Exactly. And I think your example is excellent, Doug, because just because someone came and they decided this wasn't what they wanted does not mean they're not going to tell their best girlfriend or tell their best friend, hey, I think this is good for you. Because if they got treated correctly, all it means is it just wasn't what they wanted. But that isn't rejection, and you shouldn't take it that way. It was a decision.
I signed a client last month, a big client. I signed a big client last month, and I always ask, well, how did you hear about me? They came to me through somebody who I said no to working with. So they came to me because I have a process, an application process to work with me privately, right. And I said, this person, you're not ready. It's just and it's not personal. You're not ready. Here's what you need to do to get ready, and if you can come back later. And it was a great conversation. It was very kind and friendly and compassionate. And this person, I said, how did you hear about me last month? And they said, oh, you referred by this person. I had to think for a moment. I went, that's somebody I turned away. But I did it in a way that honored them, and it clearly made an impact, because I know that they've gone on, now I found out, they've gone on to do the work to get ready to work with me, but they can see that their friend is ready to work with me. That friend was referred to me and has become a great client. Amazing. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So in building that business to your first 100,000, one of the things I like to say, because it puts it in perspective, so many people that I have talked to in that space. Now let's talk about the numbers here because they're not good. And the more I've been on so many shows in the last 6 months talking about this. We've put together masterminds to work with people to help them get to six figures. The more I've looked at it, the more I've actually become angry that so many people are going out of business. Yeah. Because I'm going, wait a minute. Now let's look at this realistically. Some of these people just aren't meant to be entrepreneurs.
True.
Right. And so we've got a quote unquote kind of easy entry in that there's no price you really have to pay to just be a failure. Because if you're not growing as an entrepreneur, you're kind of a failure.
Absolutely.
And I like to be blunt about this because nobody's going to get anywhere if we're not truthful. If you're making 10,000 and next year you make 10,000, we can't really call this much of a business, right? It's just pretty hard to call that much of a business. But here's what I find is that most who get to 20 or 50, if they get to 20 or 50, the reason they're not at 100 is only they don't know the steps.
Right.
That's usually what's missing. And what I find is they've watched the latest webinar, and we do webinars, so I'm not knocking webinars. But what I am saying is they'll watch a webinar and it's about a technique, a tactic.
Yes.
Right? And I'll talk to them, and I'm not picking on Instagram, I'm just using it as an example. And they'll say, oh, I need to have an Instagram account. And I'll go, okay, great. Why? Yeah. No why. There's no why to it.
Well, isn't that what everybody's doing now?
Yeah. It's like, well, I have to have one. And I go, okay. And I had one client said, first session, I've got to get four products built. And I said, why? Oh, well, I need to have 4 different products. And I said, well, does your market want 4 products? Well, I don't know. I just got to get them done. No. I think we need to start with figuring out what is the market.
Right.
Right. And so I find that one, they'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 markets. That's not unusual that they're trying to go after.
Sure.
I had one person I did a coaching session with, and I can talk about these because I'm never going to tell people's names or anything. I'm just using an example. Sure. I'm very confidential. But I went to their website and they literally had 4 unrelated target markets on the same homepage.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's the idea behind this? And it was actually intelligent, just it wasn't correct. Mm-hmm. And it was, well, I figured all these different people would come to my website, and then one group would be bigger than the other 3, and I would make that my target market. And I said, well, here's how it actually works. I'm going to give you 24 hours. And the person did it, and I was so proud of them. I said, you've got 24 hours to decide which of these groups you're going to work with for the next 3 years, and the other 3 are going away. Mm-hmm. And do you know they made that decision? And that was probably one of the best decisions they ever could have made, because until you've made that kind of decision and you're that conscious, focused action, you're laser focused, you can't possibly be successful. But now that you've chosen that one, and it's the biggest, I understand the biggest fear that so many entrepreneurs in that first 100,000 stage have is I can't turn down any client. I literally did a coaching session with somebody who's been in business 5 years. And I went through this whole conversation because they had so many different target markets.
Sure.
And they said that to me.
Well, I can coach anybody.
They said, well, a couple of years from now, this is already 5 years, right? And the company hasn't been very successful. They just kind of pay their bills. They said, well, give me 2 more years and then I can narrow my focus. I said, if you don't narrow your focus right now, you might not have 2 more years. Yeah, you've got to get narrow
to being unemployed,
right.
Bankrupt in 2 years.
And so you hear it over and over again, but I want you to take it to heart. It really is an inch wide and it's a mile deep.
Right.
Right? We work with entrepreneurs who want to do marketing and sell their products online. If you don't, that's not who I work with. You've got to be conscious in that you want to make a positive impact. If you don't, I don't work with you. And you're either trying to solve one of 2 problems. You either want to get through that 6 figures or you want to get through the million. And if I get you in this first thing, the great thing about that is I'm going to help you get your business set up so when you get to 100,000, that going to 1 million is a natural result because now you're focused on a different problem and it's called scaling.
Yes.
But you can't scale if you don't have systems. And that's the problem. If you get there and you don't have any systems in place, you've got 100,000 you've made, but in terms of building your business, you basically have to start at zero again, almost.
Well, I think that the other piece around that, and I know it from my own experience, is that without systems, whatever you're doing as a business, you've really just bought yourself a job.
Exactly.
It's that simple. Now, and it's a job you're working at for the first 2 years for less than minimum wage and working your ass off, 60, 70 hours a week, as opposed to having systems which give you the foundations to scale out so that you literally can be somewhere else and make money. You can be doing something else, making money. Right now, JV is here with us sharing this great information, this great insight, but he has built these systems in place for his own business so that, there's a ka-ching going on somewhere in the background. We can't hear it because it's on mute, but there's ka-ching going on because that's what it is. He has a scalable business that makes money, and that's what you help people to do, right?
Right. Absolutely. That's our number one focus is how do we work with conscious entrepreneurs who want to make a positive impact, but how do you put money in the bank? So the people who come to me, they're good people already, because who's attracted to Conscious Millionaire? It's almost like the name of the business itself screens out everybody.
Yeah,
cool. I never get on the phone with somebody who is a bad person. I have to say that. It just doesn't happen.
Listen, I'm going to rip everybody off.
They don't come and have that conversation with me. They're not attracted to Conscious Millionaire. But what is their number one problem is they don't know how to put money in the bank on a consistent basis. And the only way to do that is to systemize your business in a way that's connected. That's what I want to get across. It's connected to who you are.
Yes.
It's your passion. It's your skills, and it's those problems that you want to solve. And because of that, and you will be very good at it, because you're listening today. I guarantee you there's 1, 2, or 3 things that you are so good at, you can do them in your sleep.
Yeah.
Why did we choose systems for something that I would focus on? Because I can do them in my sleep. I walk through a store and I'm looking and taking notes about whether their systems are right. I can just see that from the way the store's running.
Yeah, and you and I talked about that. I mean, this is the thing I think that many of us miss, particularly as entrepreneurs, is that it falls into 2 categories. Is that we undermine what we're brilliant at, meaning I say to people, you have what I call a genius blind spot, and a genius blind spot means you actually run the idea that everybody knows this. Like, so for somebody like you, JV, who thinks in systems, for you it's like everybody thinks in systems. But now, of course, you said that.
And this is
don't think in systems.
It's a great teaching thing. So I'm a coach. I mean, first and foremost, I love coaching, whether it's individual, it's group. Individual, typically you got to have $500,000 to $5 million. I don't work with people typically under that because those are the kind of problems that I want to work with. And because my fees are expensive, but my fees are cheap for them. Because if you paid me $50,000 and you made another $500,000 in a year, what does it matter, right? It was a good, it's got to be an ROI. But here's the point, is that I actually needed my own coach to help me figure out that systems were what I was supposed to be focused on, because they're so easy for me. I was forgetting that 98% of the people out there are actually not good at systems.
Right, and this is the thing.
And for me, it's just natural.
Right, and so that's the thing, is that I think that, in our conversations, one of the things you're very good at is helping people to see those genius blind spots, helping them to see that part where they just don't see it, they don't own it, they don't recognize it, and then taking that and putting that into a system. Because there are other people who go, yeah, I am brilliant at that. They are doing it, but they have no system. I was that guy for years. And it was like, I'm brilliant at this, so let me just do it. But there's no system, which, as you said, is not scalable. I want to encourage everybody to go and pick up JV's book called Conscious Millionaire. It's a great book. I've read it. I've got it. You've got to get your hands on it. It's just...
Well, you know what? For your group, I'd actually like to give them my book for free.
Really? That's awesome. Tell us how they can do that.
Here's how you can get it. Just go to consciousmillionaire.com/my book, my book, and it'll be your book. So consciousmillionaire.com/my book. All we ask is just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to give you the book absolutely free, because I want to get this book in the hands of everybody that I can. It will give you the exact steps that I did to become a millionaire. It's going to literally tell you how you can do less, because we have this myth in our country that it's all about more, more. No, it's about less. It's about doing less, but doing the right things, and you'll get bigger results. And I want to share that with you. And then also there's a link inside the book. Originally we charged for it. It's a $97 program with 16 videos, downloads, and they tell you how to apply the book to your business. And throughout the book, there are over 100 coaching exercises. And there's a journal that you can download that has all the coaching exercises. It's a $97 program. Use the link inside the book. You will get it absolutely free as well.
Awesome. That's so cool. So ConsciousMillionaire.com, just for all the stuff, but you can go to ConsciousMillionaire.com/my-book. Go there. You'll be able to get JV's book and make it your book. And like he said, he'll just ask you some questions about who you are, so you see how they can best serve you. And the fact that you give this entire program away, which you used to charge for, that is pretty cool.
Thank you.
And like I said, I've known JV for a couple of years, more actually. Great guy, genuinely wants to serve. Anywhere else we need to know about? I mean, we know about you. Tell us quickly about your podcast.
Yep, absolutely. Very proud. We have, 2 podcasts. You've been on a couple of times. You've been on both podcasts. We've got the Conscious Millionaire podcast, which is business coaching for conscious entrepreneurs. We've been #1 in all the categories, when it was new. We are typically, last week, I think we were in the top 50 for business, health, and education all at the same time, which is very cool. Yeah. So we're very often in the top 100 for those 3 categories. And then we have another one, Conscious Millionaire Health Reality Show. It's a podcast 3 times a week. The first one's 5 times a week. You've been on it. And it's health and fitness specifically for busy entrepreneurs. And I have all these health experts on that give you the tips of how, as a busy entrepreneur, because look, let's face it, we're crazy people. We are. We are living roller coaster lives.
Yeah.
We are working crazy hours. And if you don't tell me you're working crazy hours, I know you're lying to me, because that's what we do.
Sure.
And we have to figure out, how do we get healthy food? How do we get exercise? How do we get rid of the stress? We address all those kinds of issues on that podcast, and it's specifically about the health and fitness aspects that we all need as our core as an entrepreneur, because that's going to relate to how successful we are.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, JV, for being with us. And I want you to stick around for a minute while we say goodbye to everybody. It's been awesome having you here. As always, you're a great guest, great information.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, you're one of my heroes. I've told you that offline. I love telling it, because you're one of the best guests I've ever had. You're so professional. You know what you're doing, and I use you as a model. So you're one of my models.
Very kind. Thank you, sir. Again, great having you here. Great information. And I implore you, as the watcher, as the viewer, as the listener, to get yourself over to ConsciousMillionaire/my-book, where you'll be able to turn JV's book, Conscious Millionaire, into your free book. He's going to give it to you. If you are serious about embracing the kind of positive disruption that builds a culture of fiercely loyal employees who not only lead, but also become evangelical about your organization and generate 10x engagement and productivity, reach out to me through FullMontyLeadership.com. Thank you for joining us here on Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty Leadership Interview Series. As I said, I'm your host, Dov Barron. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. And remember, as always, keep us relevant. Get over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Until next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.